gates with news that came out just within the last hour. The Eagles will visit the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, 4:30 p.m. kickoff on Turkey Day. It's going to be November 26th, week 12 of the schedule. This will be the first time the Eagles have played on Thanksgiving since 2015 when they were blown out in Detroit. The last Thanksgiving game in Dallas was the year before, a win in 2014 behind Mark Sanchez. That's a fun trivia question at some point. We welcome you now to Birds Huddle, presented by Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL. Alongside Dave Zangaro, I'm Amy Fadul. Dave, you got to be ready for a little turkey down in Dallas. What do you think of this game?
That'll be fun. It's been a long time. A decade we've been waiting for the Eagles to play on Thanksgiving. And it is fun. They opened the season last year against Dallas. Now they get to go down there, national television against the Cowboys. Should be a good game.
One would think so. We're going to talk about that coming up as we check out our stance. This is our three-point stance presented by Toyota. Stance number one, the rest of the NFC East should be much better in 2026. Granted, that's a bit of a low bar from last year, but they are going to be pretty good. Cowboys, Giants, Commanders all use high draft picks to add talent to their rosters. Giants also made a coaching change to John Harbaugh. So look at some of the key moves made in the division, the influx of talent. How worried should the Eagles be about the rest of their division?
Yeah, I think it gets a little tougher. You see a trio of really good Ohio State defensive players, 3 in the top 11 coming to the division. Yeah, I think all 3 of the teams are, getting a little bit better. We'll start off with the Giants. Just having John Harbaugh there, I think, brings some stability. Now, are they ready to really compete for the division this year? I don't think so, but they're going to be better under Harbaugh than they were before him. I thought they had a really nice top of that draft there with Reese and Marianoa. So that's them. And then you look at Washington, so much of their success is going to be dependent on Jaden Daniels. Is he going to be healthy next year? I don't know the answer to that. If he is, he was really good in 24, and that's sometimes the problem when a team arrives too early, like the Commanders did in 2024, is that you're kind of destined for a fallback season. That's what happened last year. And then the Cowboys, offensively, and look, offense was really good last year. I think the George Pickens situation is a little combustible, certainly. We'll see what happens there. But offensively, no questions. Defensively, I think they'll be better. Christian Parker, who comes from Philadelphia, will bring some stability to that side of the football. They added some good players. Look, I think the Cowboys are going to be a very good team in the regular season, and then we know what happens.
Every year. It's perfect. How would you predict the order of finish right now for the division?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think the Eagles and Cowboys are so close. I would have the Eagles a smidge above them. I think it is. Could Dallas win the division?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'd have the Eagles, Cowboys. I still think Washington, just because I do trust Jaden Daniels. I think he's a really good player when he's healthy. That's a big if. And then the Giants still pulling up the rear. But what are the chances the division finishes the same way 2 years? That doesn't happen. No. So that's the way it looks right now, but so many things can change.
When's the last time there was a three-time winner in a row?
Well, it was the last time there was a 2-time straight winner. The Eagles had that run in the early 2000s, but it had been 20 years since a repeat champion. The Eagles did it last year. It is tough. It just kind of underlines how difficult it is to win any division in back-to-back years, but especially this one, it kind of always rotates. So to win 3 in a row, that'd be something. I think the Eagles do have the talent to be able to do it, though.
Yeah, they should. Stance number 2, the Eagles' list of potential Week 1 opponents is dwindling. Cowboys and Giants announced today is the Week 1 Sunday night game. 2 more teams you can cross off the list. We know they won't face the Rams or the 49ers. They're playing in Australia in Week 1. Seahawks will host Week 1 as the champs, so the Eagles' home game against them is going to be later in the season. Leaves a list of 10 potential opening opponents for the Birds. So who would you want to see as the home opener?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think I would like to be in Chicago in September. I'm being very selfish here, Amy.
I'm with you, because after November, you don't want to.
I don't want to go to Chicago after that.
Yeah.
So, and that would be a fun game.
Absolutely.
Against an exciting team, Caleb Williams, that offense. I think that would be a really fun Week 1 game. And I don't want to see one of those, whatever AFC games in Week 1 either.
Jaguars.
No chance. You don't want to see that. I don't think you want to see the Titans in Week 1. You want to see something that's at least a little exciting.
All right. Texans?
That'd be fun.
Okay. Steelers? They wouldn't do that, I don't think.
I don't think so. And that's still honestly kind of a whatever game, even though it's.
It is like a.
Does anyone care about the cross-state thing?
No, I don't think that's a thing anymore. Yeah, I'm with you. All right, I'll take the Bears.
How about the Panthers, though? That'd be a fun one, too.
No, that would be fun.
Kind of an up-and-coming team. You get a home game against Carolina, young quarterback, a team that kind of surprised some people last year. I think defense. I want to see an NFC game.
Yeah.
I don't want to see
something on the line.
Yeah, something on the line in week 1.
All right, that's what we want to see. Make it happen, folks. It's already happened. We already know this. They're just going to we're going to find out at some point. Stands 3, Jalen Hurts and Sean Mannion have hit it off. This, according to ESPN NFL reporter Jeremy Fowler. So, Dave, how critical is this relationship going to be for any kind of success on the offensive side?
It's hugely important, and it would be important even if this was just another offensive coordinator and another play caller who was going to run the same system. That would be important. This is more than that, Amy. This is a guy who's coming in here presumably to bring in his own scheme, to change things up in the offense, and the only way that works is if him and Jalen Hurts have a strong relationship, if Jalen Hurts trusts him, if he allows him to make these changes, and if the quarterback's on board. That's the only way this works. So I think hearing that is really good news, because we've seen at times in Jalen Hurts' career the offense has looked a certain way, and even Jalen has said it's going to look the way Jalen Hurts wants it to look. And I think that it's about getting him out of his comfort zone and the trust in the offensive coordinator to pull some of that out of him, whether it's, being under center more, running some more play action off of it, maybe throwing to the middle of the field a little bit more. The elements of this offense that haven't really been there as much. If Sean Mannion comes in and can show Jalen, no, this is why we're going to do this, this is why it's going to work, and the quarterback trusts him, I think that goes a long way.
Does it help that Mannion's a former QB himself, you think?
Sure. I think seeing it through that lens always matters, and I think that there's a reason why so many of the great coaches in the NFL are former, not star quarterbacks, are former backup quarterbacks. I think there's a reason those guys stick around the NFL for so long is because they have a really strong sense of offense and of play calling, because they've kind of had a front row seat
they had to really learn
for
that.
so long. You think about all the great coaches who have come through here who have been backup quarterbacks, whether it's Doug Peterson or Frank Reich. That happens a lot.
Lesser degree, Kellen Moore.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, not to say he wasn't a good quarterback. Sorry, Kellen Moore, you were just fine. But what kind of season, when you're looking at it, in this offense and Sean Mannion running it and having that relationship, do you expect Jalen Hurts to have?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's tough to answer because there is presumably going to be so much new. I think one of the things that stood out to me about Jalen from last year was how little they used him in the run game, or how little he was willing to be used in the run game. One of those two. This could be a way to counteract that, because, if you're under center and your back's to the defense, you're not going to run the ball as much. We know that's why you always think about Jalen Hurts in shotgun. He can read the defense. He can run from there. But if they're able to hit on some of those other elements of offense and get the most out of him that way, I think it can kind of balance those two things out a little bit. I don't know. I don't think anyone truthfully knows how it's going to work, but
they hope they know.
Yeah, the Eagles have looked at some of these elements and been like, okay, Jalen has been good at these in this small sample size. Let's try to extrapolate that. And I don't know if it's that easy. I don't think it is, but there are reasons to think it might work.
All right.
We got one goal. We want to bring a third championship to Philadelphia. The way we do that starts with our draft process, the people that we bring into this building. We've seen it with our players. We draft them to Philadelphia. They start their life in Philadelphia. They raise their family in Philadelphia. And you certainly can look at examples of the decisions that we make over draft weekend who have affected our ability to win championships. And I think at the end of the day, we've had tremendous success with the players that we've drafted, where confetti's fallen on their heads. And so when you think about draft day and what it means and the hopes and dreams you have when you make a pick, whether it's the first round or the seventh round, and we got examples of all those players, you understand, how impactful those 3 days are.
That clip was put out by the Eagles in their behind-the-scenes footage of draft weekend. Howie Roseman aiming for a third Super Bowl trophy as the Eagles GM. He's had an eventful offseason already, but he's never really done. This guy's always working, Dave.
Yeah, never. And that's the one thing you can say about him is he's willing to make trades in August, in September, in October, and he's always willing to find free agents who might be available who can help this team. So, yeah, they have a roster right now. It's going to change. People are going to, they're going to find ways to get talent in here no matter what time of the year it is.
All right, let's take a look at some of those. Dave has a piece right now on our website, NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com, of Roseman's top 5 moves so far in the 2026 offseason. So we're going to count them down for you right now. Make sure you check that article out. These are just like the footnotes of it. But number 5, signing Jordan Davis to a 3-year, $78 million extension. He had a tremendous year last year.
He did, and look, I had this one at 5th on this list because there is some projecting involved in it. They paid him like a top-tier defensive tackle where he's had one really good season. He's been good against the run his entire career, but he's really just scratching the surface of what he can be as a pass rusher. So there is some projection involved in this, but the one thing I know about Howie is if he were ranking his moves, he would have this higher because he put so much stock into keeping the homegrown players in the building in Philadelphia, and Jordan Davis was a really important one for them. And look, they're not paying this guy because of what he does off the field, but that's kind of an added benefit to it. He's a glue guy. He's someone in that locker room who is a leader, who leads that defensive tackle room. That's all a bonus because what he did on the field last year was very good. And they're hoping that that's just the beginning for him.
Right.
And if that contract ends up being a bargain, it's because it is just the beginning.
That's a good point. Coming in at number 4, re-signing Dallas Goedert. 1-year deal, just $7 million.
Yeah, that seems like a bargain.
It does.
Based on him playing on a 1-year, $10 million deal last year and having a pretty nice season. He had 60 catches, 591 yards, 11 touchdowns. Now, some of those touchdowns were a little manufactured for him, but still a good player. And even though they drafted a tight end in the 2nd round, I don't think you want to go into a season with a rookie as your tight end 1. So this is a really nice situation where they bring back Goddard. He can kind of teach Eli Stowers a little bit, and you can have both of them in the building for at least 1 year.
All right, coming in at number 3 on Dave's list, drafting Mekhi Lemon. Eagles traded up to the 20th pick to land the receiver out of USC, stealing him from the Steelers.
Yeah, I like that, stealing him from the Steelers. Yeah, look, it's really tough to judge a draft pick right after it happened. But what we can do is we can look at the process. And I think this was good process. This was a moment where the Eagles looked at their board and said, we don't like the value that's going to be there when we're on the clock at 23. So they make a pretty modest trade up. They get into that 20 spot and they draft a player well below consensus, which, look, we don't know how anything's going to work out, but I think that is good process because it maximizes your value in a particular draft.
How much impact do you have him, really making for the Eagles in year 1?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think with this player in particular, a lot.
Yeah.
And there are some receivers in the 1st round where you're drafting
Because of the position or because of him?
A little bit of both. Now, receiver is a position where, 10, 15 years ago, you'd say pump the brakes on rookie contributions. That's not the case anymore. All these offenses in college are playing pro systems. They come to the NFL. They're very good very early. But with this particular player, it's not like the Eagles drafted him based on traits. They drafted him, he has traits that they like, but he's not like a 4.3. He's not 6'5". Like, there's none of that. He's just a really good player. Won the Biletnikoff Award as the best receiver in college football. And a lot of the things he does so well are going to translate.
Yeah.
Like, he's really savvy, finds soft spots in zones, really good after the catch. A lot of those things are going to translate from day one. So I do think he's going to be productive as a rookie.
All right. Number 2, signing free agent cornerback Tariq Woolen. 1-year deal, $12 million. Seems like another deal.
Yeah, another deal. And as Howie Roseman has mentioned, there's a reason he was available for this deal. He did not have the most consistent career with the Seahawks. He even got benched a little bit last year during their Super Bowl season. But talk about traits. This kid is unbelievable. 6'4", 210, has the ball production in the NFL, 12 career picks, 6 of them came as a rookie. And you think about what the Eagles dealt with last year, just trying to figure out who was going to be that cornerback too. And I give Adoree Jackson credit because eventually he played at a perfectly acceptable level, and that wasn't going to be good enough this year. They didn't want to play that game where they're trying to figure it out in August, September, October, so they just said, let's take care of that now. Add Tariq Woolen to a cornerback group that already has 2 All-Pros in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. All of a sudden, that is maybe the best trio in the NFL.
Oh, absolutely. It has to be. And hopefully that comes to fruition on the field, because topping your list is the trade for Vikings edge rusher Jonathan Grenard. The Eagles gave up a 3rd-round pick in 2026 and one in 2027 to land the veteran. Gave Grenard a 4-year, $100 million extension.
They did, and look, it's funny because you look at what's happened this offseason, and first the Eagles tried to keep Jalen Phillips. He ends up getting a $30 million a year deal in Carolina. They said, good luck to you. Yep. We're going to miss you, but we can't do that. Then there was some interest in Trey Hendrickson. That doesn't work. So you could look at this and say, okay, Grenard is their 3rd choice. But I think there's a really real possibility they got the best option for them. And I don't think that's hyperbolic at all. I think Bernard is going to fit this defense really well. He's going to rush the passer. He's going to play the run. His sack numbers were down last year. That doesn't bother me because his production in terms of pressure rate was still really high. I think those sacks will come. And he's a guy who's going to come in here and be top of the rotation edge rusher, which is exactly what they needed to add to a group that has Jalix Hunt and Nolan Smith.
Any more moves on the horizon, you think?
Of course.
Naturally.
Come on, how many more moves? Look, I don't know how major they're going to be. I think we all look at the roster right now and go, what's going on with safety? What's happening there? I think there's a chance it doesn't come right away. Yeah. I think maybe they'll say, let's see what Marcus Epps has. Let's see what Michael Carter has in training camp. But if those guys aren't up to snuff, Howie's not going to sit